We just finished a major rebuild on this road. I don't think a lot of people realize the consequences of a soil disturbance like this out in the wild. Today, we're going to face those consequences. What's going to happen when our winter rains come, if they come, they are running late this year. There's going to be a whole lot of water coming down off this hillside. This is where some minor gullies come together. There ends up being a lot of water in this area. It's all going to come down this newly excavated ditch. The ditch runs down into this gully, which eventually runs into fish-bearing streams. This newly excavated ditch has newly excavated soil. Water loves newly excavated soil. It loves picking it up and carrying it away, taking it to the ocean. I don't want the water to take my soil to the ocean. I want my soil to be here. Soil is what grows everything. If we go back up here where we put the culvert, we have another ditch coming down that will probably carry a good amount of water going down into the culvert. It's going to carry some of this freshly exposed soil down here into the pipe, out the other end, down the gully, eventually making it into the fish-bearing streams. Then the fish are going to get dirt in their eyes. I don't think fish want dirt in their eyes. I don't want the dirt to be down there in the fish's eyes. I want the dirt to stay up here. And the last thing I need is to have a bunch of angry fish after me because I put dirt in their eyes. There are already enough things in life to deal with. Don't need to have to deal with that too. So today we're going to take some steps to mitigate that situation, which is just a fancy way of saying we're going to do some things to make it so that doesn't happen so much. That should keep the fish happy. They say you can't make everyone happy, but in this case, maybe we can. We'll start out with this ditch. What we could do is put straw or something down on here to try to hold the soil together, or plant it with grass seed. It's too late for grass seed. That would have some problems later down the road anyway. I think there's going to be too much water coming down here for straw. It'll likely either plug the ditch up or wash away, or both. Instead, we're going to use the old-fashioned chainsaw method. What we're doing here is making what is called an analog beaver dam. This is the gully that fresh ditch drains into. We're piling this slash on the lower end of what could be a good catch basin here to catch all the sediment, or at least most of the sediment, which can serve a couple purposes. It keeps the soil from washing away, and it could help build up this little gully here, similar to the way real beaver dams do. Another purpose it serves, it helps get rid of these Douglas fir and a few cedar trees that aren't going to do well here. The soil here is too shallow for growing Douglas fir. It's better for oak. When Jeremy was digging this ditch, we can see why Douglas fir don't do well here. It's a shallow layer of topsoil with this hard stuff underneath. If sediment does collect in here, that makes some good soil in here for the trees around it to sink their roots in and take advantage of the situation. We don't have enough here. Let's get some more. We're getting a good pile here, but still not good enough. I want this to be compact. I have too many trees in this spot, competing for limited moisture in this shallow soiled site. Pine do okay here, oak do well, Douglas fir don't do so well. This one looks good in the moment, but they don't do well here long term. This one has a lot of dam building material up there. Thank you, tree, for the dam building material you are about to provide. If we take a look at the growth rings, it was growing well in its early days, but as we get out here into recent years, it's starting to slow down dramatically. The rings are getting closer together. As they commonly do here, as the trees all get bigger, all need more resources, they start competing with each other, and there's just not that much water available for all of them in this shallow soil. Douglas fir are usually the first to go into decline here. That's not all Douglas fir. In deeper soiled parts of the property, Douglas fir do fine. It's these shallow soiled sites where they have difficulty. That ought to hold it. I put the bigger, heavier pieces on top to compress it down, try to eliminate a lot of the passages where things could pass through, which is the nature of passages. It's like a big filter. Water can seep through it, but the sediment will get caught up in the, well, in the everything. For some of it that may pass through, we'll put another one down here in the main gully. This smaller gully runs into this bigger gully. I'm partly doing this as an excuse to clean up this mess and get rid of these fir trees that just don't need to be here. Okay, I might not be making everybody happy. The trees I'm cutting down might not be super thrilled about the whole situation, but the oaks over here and the bigger trees over here should be happy to not have these trees here sucking more water out of the ground. Douglas fir and others can do fine over there where they are tapping into deeper soil on the other side. I think they will be happy to have that extra water to help them through our hot, dry summers. This narrow spot should make a good spot to put our beaver dam analog. That ought to hold it. I'm only doing this in seasonal gullies, not in streams that can get enough water in them to potentially wash these away. If that happens, that can cause problems downstream. It can plug up culverts, bridges, and if you do it in a fish-bearing stream, it might be not legal in some places. If we go downstream from here, we have this new ditch that's going into the same gully downstream. Some of this fresh dirt's going to be washed down into the gully. A bunch of debris got knocked down here in the process. We'll clean that out so it doesn't plug up the culvert. On the lower side, we'll build another beaver dam analog to catch any sediment that does go through. Since there aren't any good concentrations of slash here or steep-sided channels to make a good dam analog, we'll just clear some of this stuff, and we don't want things filling up right here, right at the outlet of the culvert. I don't want to put anything right at the outlet of the culvert that could catch and build up sediment right in front of the outlet of the culvert, which could restrict the outflow. I'll just pull some of this into the channel downstream, and we can lop and scatter with the chainsaw. Now we have more of a broad area to collect sediment over a greater distance downstream away from the outlet. And we cleaned the place up, made it look better, made the road more wildfire safe. If we go downstream a short distance, it goes down into more of a deep channel, which is ideal for making beaver dam analogs. That ought to hold it. And we cleaned the place up, made it look better. Back up here at the culvert, I already had a bunch of junk in here. Some of it was in Jeremy's way when he was digging the hole. A few years ago, I had some cedar bark to dispose of from my sawmill. Back when the water was just running over the top of the road, I dumped that cedar bark in here to dispose of it, and to catch any sediment that came off the road. I'll reinforce some of that because I think it worked pretty well. That ought to hold it. I made an extra one down here just for good measure and to help clean the place up. This material will eventually rot away. As sediment builds up in here, vegetation will start growing in it. Organic material like leaves will build up in it. This will all take many years. In that time, it'll give the soil a time to settle and not be fresh excavated soil. Some of you may have noticed I'm using a different chainsaw today. I got my old 362 running again. Thought I'd bring it out and give it a little exercise today. It's an old saw with a lot of hours on it, but it's still getting the job done. This ditch that goes into the culvert goes up the hill a good distance. It could have potentially a lot of water in it when we get some heavy rains. The ditch goes around this corner and all the way up this hill until we get to this spot where Jeremy dug a diversion ditch. So all the water from above here can run out into that gully instead of having all that water going down this ditch too, all the way down the hill. Now it can all go down this well-established gully that can handle a lot of water. There will be sediment coming down that new ditch and this newly excavated area into the gully, which eventually makes it into the fish-bearing streams. I don't want to put anything right here to collect the sediment. There's not a big elevation drop between here and there. Then the water from the gully might back up out here, run down the ditch. And I don't want that. Because of that, I'm going to go downstream a little distance so we lose some elevation. I'll put my beaver dam analog there. I think I said that wrong a time or two. I think I said analog beaver dam instead of beaver dam analog. There just happens to be an accumulation of slash where Jeremy made this tree fall down and go fluff. That ought to hold it, and it's a good start on cleaning this place up. I have more cleanup I can do someday after I get this log out of the way. Just up the road from this spot is a spot where water would run from up the hill down here into the road for much of the wet season. Not a lot of water, just enough to be obnoxious, enough for me to have to do a lot of work every year to try to keep it from running down the road. A spot where it was hard to keep water bars maintained, it would always end up running over the top of them. I had Jeremy dig this diversion so the water coming down this gully will go over into this gully instead of going down the road. I don't want the water to go down the road. I want the water to go into that well-established gully that's capable of carrying a lot of water. Since Jeremy conveniently made this tree fall down and go fluff right here, I can use that to make an analog beaver dam. No, a beaver dam analog to catch any of the soil that might wash out of this freshly excavated spot. I don't want to do it right here so it backs the water up into that spot where we want water to run out. I want to do it downstream from there a little distance where we drop a little elevation. That ought to hold it. Didn't do a very good job of cleaning up here because this is all I want to do in this spot. Since the sides of this bank aren't very high, I don't want to create a situation where the water could build up enough to run over the edge of the bank, go somewhere where it's not supposed to be, or start cutting into the side banks, create more of an erosion problem than we're trying to fix. And I have that last spot I filled up downstream a short distance to catch anything that this one misses. And I don't think this thing is going to produce that much sediment anyway. This is a strange gully situation here to begin with. A gully that goes out through that way, coming down from up there where the gully is split. This gully where I'm sending the water now was not the original natural path of the water. The natural path was for it to come down this way, where it would have crossed here, went straight down to the creek down below. The reason the drainage is all jacked up the way it is, long before I had the place, somebody decided to drive through here, through the gully, out through what is now the path of this gully. What is now a gully, before that likely looked like up here. They likely saw a place like this where there's enough space between the trees, and they thought, we could just drive right through here. But just because you can drive somewhere off the road doesn't mean you always should. I think a lot of people don't realize the impact they can have by driving off the road in some places. They drove out through the gully where their tire tracks are making either small depressions up to ruts that go across the gully. Those depressions can be just enough to get water to start running down those depressions. Anytime you drive on undisturbed soil, it compacts the soil. Water can no longer soak into that soil as well. Instead, it runs down that soil, and it can eventually wash the soil away. As the water ran out through those tracks, something like this eventually became a gully like this, where it washed away all the topsoil and jacked up the whole water system. Some types of soils can be more forgiving of those kind of things than others. This decomposed granite is highly erosive and is not forgiving of just going out and driving wherever you want to drive. Before you decide to go out and drive somewhere off the road, it's good to realize you might be having a big impact on that area that might not be a good one. With all these in place, I think I have all the erosion concerns with the new road taken care of. Check back in another month or two after we've hopefully had some good rains. If there's anything interesting to show, I'll show you whatever's interesting to show. If you missed the rest of the road building videos, I'll put a playlist of that up here and something else for you to watch. I also changed around my home page on my channel. There's a bunch of playlists on there, things you may have not seen before. Is that right? I don't know. That should keep you busy until we get enough rain to get some water flowing down these so we can see how they do.